All right, now we're recording. Cool. Well, awesome, guys. So a little bit about this. So this podcast really just started as a way to talk to cool people around the country, and then with you guys doing the Great Lakes Hot class and conference, I really want to talk to you both. So I'll give you guys both an opportunity to introduce yourselves and kind of how you guys got started in the fire service, and then what brought this conference on.
Yeah, name's Sean Duffy. I've been a fireman for 19 years as of November. Um, I started, as a volunteer and just kind of worked my way up through there. Did a little bit of time in Florida, and then transitioned here to Michigan, where I now work for the city of Ann Arbor. And for me, as we were talking kind of before we recorded, I was accustomed to how things were in Florida, where if you wanted trading, it was pretty readily available. There was a conference, whether it be a Fool's chapter putting it on or um, a full-fledged conference somewhere. That was all over the state, almost every weekend, every month. I mean, you definitely had no shortage of it. So when I moved here, I wanted to continue that, and I kept looking, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, look and smoke, look and smoke." I'm like, "That's great. These are single standalone classes." Like, I'm looking for more hands-on, full-fledged conference where you can get like some fellowship, things like that.
Can we
And
all
I
say
just,
that smoke is kind of dog shit when it comes to available offerings of classes?
yeah, yeah. Well, I've heard that too, and I will say this: I don't have too much experience with it. I take classes, I get registered through it. That's about all I know. Brandon can attest to that because I'm usually like, "Hey, dude, how do I do this?"
Right.
So, he's kind of the brains behind handling all the stuff for the state for us. But yeah, it started. Gosh, was it like 2021? I think. And I called up a friend of mine, Todd Edwards, and I said, "Hey, you want to help me try and start this fire conference here? I think it'd be something good for the state, especially for the Southeast Michigan region." And he said, "Sure." And we had like 50 people sign up for it that year. And then I started it the second year, and I said, we just got to keep it going. And it got bigger. We had over 100 that following year. And, just listening to everybody's evals, this is obviously something people wanted, and they wanted several different options other than the engine and truck company operations. So we're trying to give it to them this year. This will be our third year doing it. And we're already probably looking at 190 people registered for this, and we're shooting for 300. So that's just kind of an overview of how it kind of got started and where we're at currently.
Killer. Brandon, what about you, man? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so name's Brandon Corey up in the UP in the Marquette area. I started in the fire service about 14 years ago, officially. My dad's been in the fire service for 41 years now. So I always grew up with it. I always kind of knew it was something I wanted to do. Um, then got into Great Lakes Hot. This is actually my first year kind of helping Sean run it. Last year, I was teaching down at the Firehouse Expo. Me and Sean happened to teach back to back that year. So got to know him through there. We kept in touch. I was actually teaching a RIT class down in Saginaw last year at the same time. Still swung over there for a couple days and got in touch with him there. Said, "Hey, would love to help you out with any of this stuff," and kind of grew from there. And then ever since then, just been helping him out. It's something our state really needs, as we all know. Uh, wish there was more stuff. Like Sean was talking about, yeah, there's stuff in smoke, but it's standalone classes here and there, and there's some good classes, but most of them aren't the greatest sometimes, depending on who's teaching. But I think this is something our state needed. So when I had the opportunity to hop on with Sean, I didn't look back, and it's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah, it really goes into show like how like what the state of the training is, and I'm sure there's people at State and Laura and Smoke that they want to have classes, and then you have these other offerings of classes I think that come into our state that either are held for either certain agencies, certain mutual aid groups, right? But the I can only look at what's one of them in Smoke. advanced vehicle stabilization. That's always one that's always on there. The fire exam test, the fire 1 and 2 test. They had some, the health and safety officer one. And there's other some. I don't want to call it a bullshit class, but there's like this bullshit safety class that they always put on there, and they're the least. I don't want to say the least helpful because I don't want to get burned, but like when you come to the actual part of the job, one that people enjoy, and two, the stuff that matters most is never on there. There is never a class that is truly like truck company operations, engine company operations, aggressive search. You might have that smattering, but that normally doesn't pop up. And this was talked about a couple of years ago, but it really gives you an idea of the state of training in the country right now for firemen, that there's a offshoot of businesses, private businesses that can, I don't want to say benefit from it, but are the only option to get some sort of aggressive training in, or training that is going to be worth a damn when it comes to getting on the fire ground. So when you guys were, when it was first introduced and you guys were first getting it going, what kind of hurdles did you run into trying to get this thing off the ground?
The biggest thing for me was just trying to gain interest. I remember putting out a flyer on NPFFU, and some asshole from Royal Oak Fire Department decided to say that I wasn't a fireman and got me kicked off the page and everything removed. So that was fun.
It was probably Dan. Fuck you, Dan. No, I have a good friend on Royal Oak named Dan. I was just busting his balls.
No. I don't know who he was. I really don't care. That's how little he means to me. But that was the first beginning. I was like, oh, okay. He was like a nice money grab and all this. And
yeah,
and obviously you take shit from people in your own department or other departments.
Yeah, we suck to each other too, so we can be real dickbags to each other on the job.
It was, yeah. And I was like, you guys got this all wrong, man. Like, one, I don't make any money off of this. Like, we make enough. Like the first year, I actually had to dip into my own pocket to pay instructors, right?
Sure.
The second year, we like barely broke even. So this certainly isn't something that people are making money off of. In fact, like the registration prices and everything else goes towards everything, to make sure that you have good venues, you got proper, all the equipment and supplies you need and all those things. So battling some of those, and then, people saying like, hey, who are you to teach? It's like, well, I'm not even teaching. I'm just facilitating this training.
I'm just the email guy.
Yeah. Like, dude, I literally set this up.
Yeah.
I coordinate the whole thing. And then students show up and they take training from people that are far smarter than me, so I think it was tough. And we still see some of that, still, but I think people are starting to realize that this wasn't a whole, like, hey, look at me, type thing. This was, hey, how can we collectively come together and get better, and we have to step outside of our comfort zone and realize that, like, within the confines of our four walls of our fire department, there's a lot of people there that are great and are super knowledgeable. But if we never look past that and we don't go and find people around the country who are doing different things that might benefit us, then, we're kind of stagnant. So having that opportunity to bring in people that I've been able to meet through traveling and stuff like that, and have them come in with their expertise on certain subjects has been awesome. And I think people are starting to see the value in that, and the buy-in is definitely there. So hopefully little bites at a time, we keep chugging it forward and it'll get bigger.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right with our own agencies, right? Like, if we get into our own agency and we think everything is cool and good, right? But I think a lot of times too, people don't want to get found out. And so Brandon, with you being in the UP, how does, that culture up there, like, what's it like trying to get some of that involvement to come south of the Mackinac Bridge to, like, I don't want to say more urbanized departments, but trying to get some of that going? Because stuff in the UP, I think, is maybe often forgot about or just assumed like it's a backwoods operation up there. But you run into issues with trying to, like, get some of those area departments that are so far north to come south of Mackinac to conferences like this?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm even having a hard time with us in Marquette County. My department's really good. We've always sent people down everything. We sent, I think, 4 or 5 last year. We're sending 5 or 6 this year. So department, we're really good at getting people, but countywide, UP wide, it's a struggle. Um, we are always forgotten about a lot by the state. Our current state fire marshal, Kevin, he does a good job trying to keep us involved. He comes up here a lot better than the ones were before, but it's still a struggle. I was, I think, a month or so ago when I was down in Milwaukee teaching. One of my buddies down there described training up here really good. It's inbred, and the fact that um, it's always been done this way within this department, and that's how it always keeps handed down from year to year to year, and no one goes out and gets anything else. So it's not expanding, it's not going down to different places, meeting these new people, seeing what is the new. Is the way we're doing this up here in the UP the right way to do it, or is there new science, new data? It is inbred and backwards a little bit, but it's starting to change now. I'm getting a few more people on board up here, and we're really starting to push stuff. So it's changing, but we're still a couple years behind, even downstate. As a
Yeah.
state, if you look around, I'd say we're years behind everywhere else because we don't have the conferences like everyone else does. But then you go back a couple more years, and that's up in the UP.
Yeah. And kind of what I was saying, it's got to be so true up there too, but people also don't want to be found out, right? And I think I think you guys did a great job this year too, and I don't know if it was like this last year, but I think you guys did a great job with offering a conference only kind of package where, one of the guys that I work with put in for the conference only, right? And I was like, that's cool. And I kind of was like breaking his balls a little bit. I was like, that's cool. I'm going to put in for the conference because I don't want to go sweat, right? But that's kind of like it's good to bring some of those guys in that might just want to put their foot in the water, right? Dip their toe in and see like what this conference is about and maybe look at it from afar. Because I think there's a huge element that I love how the public makes this profession out. Like we are a bunch of superheroes that have no anxieties. There is no one more bitchy and complainy than this fire service, right? Like the guys that we work with, like there's so much anxiety written out there, and people, especially of higher rank, don't want to get found out that they don't know shit, or they might not know to the level that and this speaks to what you guys were both talking about. But if you only know what you know and you go to a conference and then you get found out that you have all this rank or all this experience, or you shit talk all this time and you don't know everything, or you didn't know a tactic or a tip, that's like probably just some individuals just fucking terrifying for them to like have to be able to step out of those 4 walls. And I think the more, as you put, Brandon, more inbred your department, the harder and harder it is to kind of go outside of that. So you both have talked about the conference kind of developing through like over the course of the couple of years. What courses this year returned, and then what other ones were added?
Yeah, so I'm gonna just step backwards just for a second. The reason why I can't speak for everybody but myself. Training, it should be fun, right? It should be a good thing, and that's why we try to offer all that to people, because you know what? None of us are perfect. Hell, I probably mess up more than anybody I know. But that's the beauty of it though, right? And that's what I want to tell to anybody who's listening, or who might be like, oh, I just want to do the conference because I don't want to like mess up. Like, it's okay. That's why you're there.
This is the time.
That's the time. Nobody there is going to make fun of you and be like, oh, look at that idiot. Like that's not what we do. We're there to upbuild each other and help fine tune skills, because let's face it, man, like not all of us are going to fires every day. Not all of us are cutting on cars every day. There's a vast majority of our job that we're just not doing enough, right?
I could blindfold, like walk you through every nursing home that I have for every lift assist that I've had to go on.
Right. Yeah, we do EMS like a ton, right? Unless you're blessed to be on an apartment that doesn't run EMS. But regardless, the issue at hand is that we just don't get enough sets and reps. So that's what these conferences are for. It's to show up gain confidence in a skill that maybe you're not proficient in. Maybe you are, and you just need some more sets and reps because you haven't done it in a while, whatever it is, this is a welcoming environment. And, you're talking about taking tips and tricks from instructors that collectively have well over 100 years of fire service experience that work in, really ghetto neighborhoods to busy cities to, suburban areas. It's all over. So you're really getting a really good mix of education when you show up to something like this, not just our conference, but in general. So with that being said, the returning tracks for this year, Mayday Mindset. That's Robert Ramirez. He does a fantastic job. He was there last year. He's coming back this year. Our engine company track has changed. We actually added 2. So Todd Edwards is coming to do like a mid-rise mayhem thing. That is new. And then we'll have Anthony Rowett, Kyle Romigas come in and do the secondary engine class. That is also a new engine class. The track offering is the same as far as engine company operations. Just it just looks different. And as far as that, pretty much, the officer development track that's coming back. John Haywick and Chief Dennis Riley, they're going to be doing that, and that's again another class that's for anybody. Whether you are aspiring to be a company officer, or maybe you ride 2 to an engine, or whatever your staffing level looks like, at some point, everybody is expected to make some at least basic level command decision, right? Whether that's assuming command and passing it off, whatever that looks like for you. So that class is going to be there, and everything else for the most part is fairly new. Extrication's new. The Urban Force One Tree track, that's brand new. What else? Oh, thermal imaging. That's a new one we added this year. So there's a lot of them. I think the other thing too, since we're talking about additions and the conference, is our spouse track. Twisted Fire Industries does a phenomenal job with including wives and significant others into the mix. So anybody who's coming to the conference, I promise you, if you bring your significant other or your spouse, they're not going to be bored. They're going to be able to put on bunker gear and do things and force doors and do searches and stretch hand lines and all that cool stuff. And if there's time and we're able to get them over to your site, they'll be able to watch you do your drills as well. And, it'll be a very welcoming environment for the spouses too. So that's important for us, is that firefighting and training in our mindset is family. I mean, that's what it is, right? So might as well bring your wife and kids and come and enjoy the weekend together.
Right on. Brandon, for you, what with your involvement, kind of talk a little bit of what your involvement was like trying to shape these courses and classes, and kind of what are you most excited about coming into this year for?
So when I got on board with Sean, he pretty much had almost everything lined up already with the tracks and the speakers and all that. We've added a little bit with the second engine track together and all that. Kind of helped them set up the Michigan day that we're having on Wednesday. But I was able to secure and bring in Chief Frank Lee from the FDNY on Wednesday for our keynote. I've got to know him pretty well the last couple of years, so just pitched it to Sean. Okay, I'll reach out to him, see if he's willing to come and speak in Michigan and all that, and he was able to make it work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Frank Lieb, and I think you guys also have Cody Trestrail coming in. Another huge player in like the Brothers in Battle space and moving this fire service forward. Who or what? I mean, Romigas is easy, right? I think I saw Mitch Huner is coming in with Force. I know Mitch really well. He did this podcast. Romigas did this podcast. 2 hella cool guys. I love Mitch to death. What Mitch did with bringing in the TSR Halligan and basically creating a whole new revolution in fire service training tools and just tools in general is I think the biggest like rebirth of firefighting tools since the Halligan bar. I really do believe that with Huner coming in. How did you guys select, because there's a smatter, like you guys said, there's a nationwide, there's a bunch of guys doing a bunch of great stuff. How did you guys land on these particular individuals? And this could be for Sean and Brandon too, either one.
Well, so for the Michigan, I'll start with that select part. For the Michigan day, for those instructors, pretty much I just opened it up to everybody. And I said, hey, somebody gave me an opportunity once to speak my, what I wanted to, right? My passion. So I wanted to give that back to instructors that were in the state of Michigan, give them a platform that maybe other people haven't given them yet. So that's kind of where that came from. And we just took submissions and I read through it and I tried to see like what classes aligned with what the values of the fire conference was, like which direction. Like obviously we know that search is a big thing right now, so I wanted to make sure that we had some of those in there, and it wasn't just me doing my class on search. It was somebody that maybe nobody's ever heard of to get a different viewpoint, so we selected all those couple different topics that I think are good for all of us to have some takeaways. And then for everybody else, man, I've been really blessed the past couple years of my career. I made a program, Searchable versus Survivable, and I've been able to travel the country and teach that. I've done it at FDIC, I've done it at Firehouse Expo, and I've just kind of just gone where I've been invited to go. And along the way, I've met some incredible people and they've become friends. And I've had the pleasure of sitting in on their programs and taking their classes as well. And I just know the value that they have. So what I wanted to do was pretty much bring, not everybody can afford to go to FDIC or Firehouse Expo or any of these other expensive conferences. So I wanted to bring my friends here and give that to our state. Programs that I have physically vetted myself, that I know that people will benefit from, that are definite game changers. Especially, and this is no stab to the state of Michigan at all. So if this comes across wrong, I apologize. But when I moved here, I felt like I was in a time warp. I felt like I was like, whoa, we're just now doing these things. I've been doing these things in Florida for.
I'll say it. We had fucking nothing. Like we had nothing. There was nothing here. Like outside. Okay. All right. I'm going to try to dial myself back. All right. The only thing that we had, and I don't really know too much, beyond like this southeastern Michigan bubble that's kind of in my purview, right? Outside of maybe something hyper local to Grand Rapids. But for our area, the Novi Fire Expo was like it. And that's just a bunch of guys looking for freebies and vendors trying to hawk you shit. And you can look at a couple of new things, but we didn't have anything. This is, to my knowledge, the only thing that's out there that has anything where I can have live fire, have a Halligan in my hand, go and break some shit, fall down and do it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, no, it's, and like I said, it wasn't for any other aspect that like I knew what level of training was being presented where I came from and what I've learned and what that meant to me and what I've picked up along the way. And when I got here, I was just like, man, I feel like I'm 10 years behind, with the way that we like just our mindset is on certain things, of like search being one of them, like, whoa,
dude, suburban search is that should be a whole class on how we suck at I will say suburban search is not anywhere near the emphasis it needs to be.
Yeah, right. And you, like I said, that's not a stab at the state, like
right.
You know what you know, and you don't know what you know, so you don't know it, right? So it's one of those things where it's like I just know the standard that I have for myself as a firefighter, and that I'm always like kind of like wanting more. And I knew that there's probably firefighters in the state that wanted that same thing and felt the same way. And the only way I knew how to give it to them was to reach out to the people that I've met and say, hey, I need you to come here and do your program, because you know what? They probably won't listen to me or you or Brandon or anybody else in this immediate area because we're from here, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes. But you get somebody from the outside who has the same values and passion that you do, who teaches or preaches the same things you do, people are going to listen. That's just the way it goes, like, oh, this guy's from Buffalo. Oh, he probably goes to fires and cups on roofs. Yes, he does. But you know what? I can show you that same tactic and technique, and you're going to be like, what the fuck do you know?
Right.
But I bring in my buddy Sean Egan to show it to you, and all of a sudden you think it's the greatest thing in the world. So my point was, I don't give a shit who does it. I don't, right? As long as people are receptive and learning, that's all I really cared about. And I just wanted the best people to come in to do that.
So kind of like talking about both of your passions, because obviously you guys are very passionate about the fire service. Brandon, starting with you, what's been like, I think most firemen have like a thing they gravitate towards or enjoy doing, part of the job that really, has gravitated towards them. You've been doing this for, you're in your 14th year. What about like what in the fire service really got you hooked on the job, and then kind of how did that develop into you doing your own training throughout the state?
Um, so it's just been instilled for me from a young age of always when you do something, try to do it to your best of your ability. From my dad growing up with the fire service all through sports and everything. So I was always into it, trying to be the best that I could. But it really came to a road in March of 2020 when I was involved in a line of duty death up here in the UP, and we lost one of my good buddies that day. Uh, Felt like I was pretty solid as a firefighter, had my skills down pretty good, especially on the RIT stuff. But something like that really humbles you, really puts it all in perspective and shows, no matter how good you think you are or how much reps, sets you get and everything, you can never get enough. So ever since then, it's almost been like an addiction to training and trying to get better and everything. So I'd say that probably has instilled a lot into me, obviously, going through that whole thing. And ever since then, I just can't get enough of it. Um, so that's what I've been going around and talking a lot about around the Midwest and other places is that incident, plus just more how we can look at RIT and get it done better on fire scenes and implement it in small areas and bigger cities, all that stuff. How can we look at, Detroit or Chicago up here in the UP and take things from them and make it work for up here with our small staffing and everything. So that's kind of where that has gone and been a fun ride.
That's kind of got to be I struggle with that too. So we cover an area of about 40,000 people. We run about 4,000 calls a year, and we're about 40-ish minutes away from Detroit, and we struggle. And I want to ask you, I want to follow up on that too. We really struggle with taking some of that stuff that we might learn from Detroit or a New York or, insert big urban city, and still in an attempt to adapt it. Everyone understands we're not going to send 55 people to a house fire. We're going to send 10. We're going to send 12. We might send maybe 6, depending on how many call-ins we have that day, right? But we're going to try to adapt, and if they have a mount on their truck that works better for them because it makes them faster and more efficient, we even struggle with bringing some change over to that, because I remember a chief telling me one time that they didn't want to mount a set of irons in the cab for no other reason other than we're not New York. We don't need to grab them that fast. I'm like, all right, well, I disagree with it, but you're the chief. And then we had some real estate on the side of the diamond plate on the outside, and same sort of attempt, and it kept being met with this, we're not New York, we're not going to do it that way sort of thing. How does that translate? And I'm sure it translates to both the Ann Arbor area and also in the Marquette UP area, but how is it going for you? Because you guys obviously are well-traveled, well-versed in what else is out there. What is your tactic for bringing, I'll start with Brandon, what's your tactic for bringing something back to your agency in an attempt to, either implement it or show its value?
Take something from, let's say, FDNY. Obviously, if it works for them, they're burning, they're doing a lot of stuff. But how can you then translate it to how you guys operate? So it was kind of starting before I got hired Marquette, because I got hired after I was involved in line of duty. They're starting it, but the biggest thing from the RIT side of it, FDNY, they send what? They're probably getting 50, 60 people to a structure fire, and they have their fast truck set up right away. So how here in Marquette, we only have 6 or 8 guys from our department going. Well, obviously we can't set up RIT with our guys because we barely have enough to start search, suppression, whatever. So we actually have one of our volunteer departments to the south of us. They're automatic aid with us right away, and they're our RIT group. So they're not our department, but they're getting paged at the same time we are coming as RIT. So it's not our own department, but we're setting it up like a bigger department that they're getting paged right away, showing up on scene, and that's what they are designated for. They don't help with anything else. They're designated wherever we stage them as the RIT crew. They do all their stuff, and it's the same thing for us. Both our north and south townships that we border, anytime they have a structure fire, we're going there as RIT, and that's our job. We're paged out right away. So again, not the same department, but close enough where we're taking that aspect from a Chicago FDNY of getting 50, 60 people on a fire scene and being able to set something up like that to, okay, we're only getting 6. How do we do that now? Well, we rely on other departments to do that.
Sure. And Sean, I can imagine with, I'm not saying this is your agency, but agencies maybe similar to yours, your department's been around for a very long time. Maybe getting some sort of changes with that might come with a little bit of a struggle too. Maybe not from inexperience, but changing an established practice or procedure. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. I I know not everybody is probably going to agree with me on this, but I think we're pretty blessed to have a great fire chief. He's pretty progressive. He takes classes. I mean, he came to Great Lakes H.O.T 2 years in a row. He'll probably be there this year too. And he just listens and he takes things, he reads, and he's always looking like, hey, how can we do things better? So I appreciate the hell out of that. I think, when he comes in, he goes, hey, we're going to go away from this and we're going to put smooth bores on here, or we're going to go and we're going to try this hose load instead. You guys figure it out. Let me know how it works for you. There's obviously some resistance from people who have been accustomed to doing it a certain way, probably long before he got there. But one of the most impactful things that he does for us is he also allows us to go to classes with the expectation that we come back and we show it to people. So, hey, I'm going to send you to nozzle forward as an example. You come back and you show people what you've learned, and he brings people in from all over, and we pick and choose what works best for us. And that's great, but that's one thing if it comes from the chief. But how do we do it coming from like a firefighter, right? Well, one thing is I don't have rank. I just look at it and I say, hey, I like to start conversation. So an example would be when I first got there, our department had no Lockwood hooks at all. I had my own. People laughed at me because I bring my own tools in. Like,
Yeah.
whatever, I like these tools. They work for me.
Yeah.
We don't have them. So I'm going to put them on the truck and I'm going to take them off when I leave for shift. And, just putting those tools in people's hands and talking about them and letting them figure out how it works. That's going to speak for itself, right? There's no need for Sean to be like, oh, this pike pole sucks, or that New York roof hook sucks because of this. That's just noise, right? Like, a lot of people ask the questions. Like, people were like, hey, what is that hook? Oh, it's a Lockwood hook. It's kind of like the New York hook, but it does this and this and this, and this is the design. And I like it. It's pretty cool. And like the Halligan Mary's right here. It's easy to carry, like whatever. Left it at that. Let some people try it, at some trainings and whatnot. And now we got them on our trucks. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be this violent thing that we obviously like. We like to make it. Like, we like to butt heads and argue about shit. And it's just like, hey man, you do what it works for you. Could you force a door with a regular pro bar? Sure. But I carry a TSR Halligan and I like it a lot better because I have a 17 to 1 mechanical advantage. And this is why. Watch, let me show you. Dude, we forced the door the other day and the firefighter I was with was like, dude, that was effortless. Right. So when you know your tools, you know your training, you know all that stuff, and you just kind of drop those things out there, eventually it's going to speak for itself, right? So I used to be the young firefighter that was in everybody's ear yapping like a chihuahua, like, no, 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 we need to change, we need to change, we need to change. And now I just look, this is what I think. This is why I do this, whatever. And I let other people just ask the questions, and the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, right? So um, and I could be wrong. There is that side of the equation that we have to be honest with ourselves about too. Like we could 100% feel strongly about something and be wrong. Just because we like it doesn't mean it's beneficial or that we need to do it for our agency, right? So um, open and honest conversations, and just like keep pushing the ball a little bit forward. I think Rob Fisher says it, 10% of pressure 100% of the time. That's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, I'll echo everything that both of you said, and Sean, to what you said as well. There was a time in my career I was a real piece of shit, and um, I would like just harp kind of that chihuahua. I would just nag and nag, and I was right, and I'm still fucking right. But my approach was god awful, right? I would be up everyone's ass on why this was the best method, even to my administration. And so when it came time to implement something, I've since promoted and seeing a different side of it and getting older. Why in the hell would they I'll use the term reward. Why would they reward me with this change if I've been an asshole for the past year and a half, telling them that everything they do sucks and they should listen to me? When I forget who said it, but like the most dangerous person on the job is the person that has 3 years on, right? Like they're just far enough removed from being new that they know a little thing, but then they become like a little too big for their britches. But I was a total piece of garbage. And now I look back on it, and I'm kind of in that same position that you are, Sean, where like I'll believe what I believe, and I will drown you with a mountain of research on why I came to my conclusion here. But it can't be, and maybe you guys can speak on this too. Like, it can't just be one person driving that cause. If it's one person that's trying to move this whole thing, you're not going to get anybody. But the second you start to bring in other individuals that are going to believe in it, like I'm 10 years in on trying to bring in a smoothbore nozzle to my agency, and I'm 10 years defeated, because this belief that it's a fog nozzle or nothing, right? And so, but you bring in a couple of test nozzles, you start doing a little bit more research, and now we got a new chief coming in, and we're going with a whole new hose and nozzle complement. But that wouldn't have come without getting other people involved. So everything that you guys are saying is just so killer, and so I think spot on to every single agency that's like in the state and probably around the country.
Yeah, I mean, like you alluded to, if you don't have buy-in, you don't have anything. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's an uphill battle. Like it's going to be a long time before you see that buy-in, but it's all about consistency. Like if you truly believe in it and there's value in it, you've got to stay with it. Just because you got told no once, or like a bunch of people say that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, like listen, that's great. Like keep pushing. I worked for a department that for a little bit that was like 100%, we're not getting smoothbore nozzles. That's fine. I looked at my officer. Hey, I have my own. Can I put it on the line that I'm going to be pulling that day? Sure, whatever. Cool. And when I was riding an ambulance, guess what? They didn't have a water can. I take it off the brush truck and put it on the ambulance for the day, along with my partner who had his set of irons and a hook. And that's what we did. Now that department has that complement on their ambulances, but it wasn't because of me or my partner. It was because other people saw value in it as well and continued to push for it. So just understand that, like you got to make a believer first, and then that believer will make other believers, and so on. And that could take some time, and that's okay.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're passionate about something and it's good for change, you might run into walls with different administration or whatever. If I can give any advice, just stay consistent with it. Stay true to your values. Don't just change because someone else says no, that's stupid or something. Try to get that one other person to buy in, and then maybe you'll get two, and all that stuff. We actually just kind of been going through that the last couple of years at my department on different things. One recently that actually goes back to Great Lakes H.O.T was a guy that was there before me was really trying to push on something simple and masking up with your gloves on. That was something that was newer to our department. It was an older department, and when he got hired, he just thought that was crazy. But it was older people, didn't really see it and everything. I got there, we tried pushing it, didn't really go anywhere. Our training chief actually went down to Great Lakes H.O.T last year and watched one of our guys. He dropped to his knees, took his gloves off after he forced the door, put his mask on, and after that, one of the instructors got on him about it. Of simple, you got your gloves on, leave them on, mask up, learn how to do it. And came back from Great Lakes H.O.T last year, and we bought all new hoods to make it easier. Been going over it the last couple of years with people. So something small like that, it took some time, but once you get enough buy-in like we did, it's now implemented. So people are going through that within their departments. Just stick with it. It might be hard and kind of annoying sometimes, but just stick with it and getting more people buy-in, and eventually it'll change.
That's the cool part about the conference, though, is what you were saying, that the instructor kind of got after him. Like, although that might be a little uncomfortable in the moment, like those are those key items that are going to change your mindset on doing this job, right? Like that's such an important thing that I think if we go to a conference, or if you're just in something for a certification, you show up, you sit around the round table, you bullshit for a little bit, you have lunch, you go home. Hey, I have a certificado in X, right? But that's where I think your conference is going to be so great, is those impactful changes that I think are going to establish a culture. Because we see a culture that is like the Brothers in Battle culture and Nozzle Forward and Aaron Fields, and your guys on the East Coast like Nick Exposito and Brian Bestinelli, and the West Coast guys, and Romulus down. I think is Romulus in Texas. Is it Texas? Yeah. So you have Romulus, like, and you have all these people that, to their credit too, are using social media in such a positive way. To blast out this message. And I think with the culture and the youth that we have in the fire service now, I at least for myself, I'm seeing kind of this change in this adaptation of like these traditionalized values of the fire service. How are you guys seeing that? Because at least in my area, it's not great, it's not huge, but as we got some guys that are retiring. The Gen X people are kind of coming up for retirement right now. The millennials are the ones that are taking, lieutenant and captain's positions. You have Gen Z that are taking these firefighter positions and coming up through the ranks. And I think it's a lot of guys, maybe in our age bracket, between 10 and 20 years on the job, that are so, I know I'm being long-winded, but are so frustrated with maybe where it was when we came up. I remember going through the fire academy, and at one point they were teaching us like this, you remember the bullshit boot to boot method for search? Like,
unfortunately,
does that not just, like, when you look at that and you think about and you look at an NFIRS book and the academy, or the essentials book, right? And then you look at like the boot to boot method, and it's like three guys that are doing like this human centipede of a search through a room. And then like you have one element where like you throw one couch or a coffee table, and that whole thing goes out the fucking window, right? And then you take one lesson on VES, and I think, I forget, one truck guy was like, or you can just call it search because that's what it is, right? But you get like this way more realistic view where there is nothing that's going to make me more, I won't say more scared, but like if all my like orientation is a boot of the guy in front of me, and his boot is connected to some guy on the wall, F that. I'd rather throw a ladder, get in a window, shut that door, do a quick search, and hop out. And I don't know where I was going with all this, but all of that that what this sorry I just
That's all right.
I just started thinking about that stupid like image, that cartoon image in the Essentials book, and I'm like, do I remember being there thinking like at one time in my career I thought that was legit, right? So anyway, that I know where I was going with that. How have you seen it in your own agencies, your own areas, your own teaching of maybe, are you guys seeing a shift, seeing that kind of these people taking over and this adaptation of like traditionalized values of the fire service itself?
Um, I'm not going to speak to like agency specific because I think no matter what agency you work for, unless you have a standard set in place, like everybody does something different, right?
Sure.
Like, um, so it's hard because like, let's say I'll go back to like the beginning of my career. I never knew who I was going to work with, right? Like I could have a part-timer come in for the day and work with me who's brand new and I don't know how they search or I don't know how they stretch line or so I could show them my way, right? But then somebody else is going to show them a different way and eventually they're going to develop their own way. And unless as a department specifically you sit down and you say this is how Ann Arbor or this is how Marquette or Lake Orion or wherever you work, this is how we address search and rescue. This is how we address stretching hand lines. Like, and I'm not saying policy to people to death. You know, what I'm saying is practical application through drilling, right? So,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to stretch line every day until I know everybody on here can do it the same way, period. And then it's not even thought about and we just operate, right? So I have seen a big shift. Um, you know, when I moved here, I provided some agencies with some search training and I've gotten some awesome feedback from them of things that they've changed. Um, you know, I've had conversations with people I've worked with and I see how they do things in trainings and stuff like that. And yeah, I would say that the messages are out there and they're easily accessible and people know them. The problem is you have the disgruntled people that are like, well, fuck that. I'm not changing it. There's nothing wrong with the way I do it. And you go to do something, and then someone's like, hey, why are you down there? Stand up. It's like, well, hey, motherfucker, I'm trying to do a search down here.
Yeah.
Like, why are you standing up when the people are on the floor?
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's just a mindset shift. But what I have seen is it seems like this is where I will speak to my agency. When I first got hired there, I met up with a couple people there about my age. Had a little over a year, maybe 2 years on the department, so fairly new themselves. All knew the same people that I knew as far as like who's who of the fire service, who's teaching what.
Yeah.
All had the same values, wanted to learn, want to be better, continue to push, put in for classes, do stuff like that. Even people that we have hired recently, you watch them on social media and stuff, and like their comments and stuff, like on the nozzles, you know, that are being displayed now, and just things that are happening in the fire service that they happen to be in tune with. So I think within like this next generation, we're in pretty good hands. Like we have a lot of people that are fired up about the job, and the disgruntled people are on their way out, and we're just going to replace them, and that's fine, you know, because you know whether it's you, me, or Brandon or anybody else, when we're gone, the fire service moves on without us. And
Mm-hmm.
right now, we have a core group of people that are fairly young that are going to be here for at least the next 20 years that are fired up and hungry and they're shaking things up. And I think it's fucking awesome.
Hell yeah. Is it so, Brandon? What about you? How have you found that in either your traveling or up there in the is it the 906?
906.
There it is.
Uh-huh. I mean, just to echo what Sean says, I think we have a good core group of people right now that are really pushing change and training and doing the right things and all that, and inspiring the younger generation coming up. See that here up in the UP a little bit. Um, we're starting to get a little bit younger, mostly volunteer up here. So I mean, we're still getting people that are coming fresh into the fire academy to help run that are still, 40, 50 years old, but they're still energetic, wanting to learn. And I got a good group of instructors up here that are buying into a lot of the new stuff. Hey, let's get training up here and happy about it and everything. But we still have a couple of those older generation people that are just stuck in their ways. Last year at class, they were doing search. I had left for FDIC the week before. Come back to that. Before I left, I showed them, hey, I know still in the book it shows boot to boot, follow this wall, and like I get that, but this is how we need to be doing it. Showed them and everything and all that. So I leave for FDIC for a week, hanging out with Sean, everyone having a good time. Literally get back the next day, go to a practical and watching it, and they're boot to boot, following the wall. And I just lost my shit. Probably not in the right place in front of all the students, but I'm like, I just went over this. I even called up the instructor that was teaching the actual search class and said, hey, we need to be doing it this way. I know it shows this way in the book, but it doesn't work. We need to be showing them this way and all this stuff. And everyone, even after class, was like, we totally get, why we're doing it this way. All the students, they liked it better with this way. They're like, it took us so much longer to search this room when we're doing it the boot to boot and wall. And
Tell me they piled all the bullshit into the center of the room. Tell me they piled all the bullshit to the center of the room as they found like a chair or something and they moved it in the middle. Tell me they did it.
They did. Yep. Take everything and just throw it in the middle of the room. One person got stuck on a chair that was in there. I mean, it was just a cluster. And like I said, probably not the best time to kind of lose my shit in front of everyone, but I mean, it's just one of those things. And had another talk with that person, and all it took was more sitting down with them and explaining like, hey, this is why we're doing it this way, not jumbled up. You search faster, you can get more area and everything, and he actually bought into it. So I think that's one thing too with some of these older generations is just sitting them down a little bit more and saying, hey, this is why, and giving them the facts and all that stuff. I deal with that a lot up here of just sitting down with people that give me a hard time about training or what I'm doing and all this stuff, and just sit them down and say, hey, I know this is how it was always done, but look at this way. And if they take it, awesome. If they go back to the other way, that they're back to their way that they're comfortable with. But at least still trying to push that older generation to change a little bit, but we all know that's hard.
Yeah, for sure. So shifting back a little bit to the conference, and we'll get you guys out of here. I appreciate your time. So you guys are in 3 different locations. How did those 3 areas pop off? I believe your Macomb Township for their training tower, Southfield. I mean, that's an obvious given one. And you guys locked in OCC's Crest Center. That's awesome. So how do those 3 areas kind of pop into the landmarks here?
Space. We needed space, which is not a bad thing. The original plan was to have the conference in Macomb County. That's what we wanted. And they're a great site. I don't think anybody could have planned that in 3 years' time it was gonna like rapidly be outgrown. We thought we had some more time, but given the students what they wanted, we realized like last year, or well, would have been this year, we just can't have 100 people at the same site going through a 2-story burn building, trying to do evolutions. It's just too much. It's too crazy and hectic. And, we made it work, but it's time to kind of look. So I reached out to Southfield, Jason Deneau over there, and he's their training captain. And he was super geeked about it. He's like, absolutely, let's make it happen. So went over there, walked the site, kind of told him the plans, and he's like, hands down, let's do it. So conference started going and getting more bigger, and then talking to Brandon, I'm like, hey man, we have a lot of stuff to offer at 2 different sites. We could really use a 3rd site if we're going to do this thing properly and just keep them manageable so that it's not crowded anywhere students go. And it was important for me to keep things within a 25 to 30-minute radius from the host hotel. And all 3 of those fit that category. So I was originally told, no way OCC is going to go for it unless they're instructing things or anything like that. And I said, okay, well, I need to have a conversation with somebody then. And I sat down with them one day and just kind of explained the conference. And 2 weeks later, they're like, yeah, absolutely, you can have the spot. What do you need? What do you need from us? And it's totally been humbling, how welcoming people have been. I expected a lot more resistance of no, sorry, you can't do that here type thing, but it hasn't been that way. So we acquired those 3 facilities, and that's just what we're going to be plugging away with moving forward. And yeah, it's been awesome to see the positive feedback from the people who run those facilities.
That's awesome. That I mean to have those. I mean to have those 3. I mean, I haven't been to Macomb, or the Macomb Township one, but I spent some good amount of time doing tech rescue stuff at Southfield, and then OCC for burns and everything. I think it's going to be phenomenal. After we had kind of messaged this back and forth, so after the conference, what can guys expect? Like afterwards, after the conference is over, with either the hotel, you guys doing social hours? How can do you have swag? Kind of what's the after party life like?
Well, I'll let Brandon kind of hit it off because he's in charge of what's happening on June 12th, which is our first lecture day. He's kind of setting that all up on everything. So I'll let him talk about that, and then I'll talk about the next day.
Mm-hmm. So the first day, Wednesday or Michigan Day, plus we have Chief Frank Lieb keynoting that day, like we talked about. So what we're setting up on that day also is kind of a roundtable with Chief Lieb. So we'll give the opportunity to all the participants to ask Chief Lieb any kind of question within the fire service that they want. To be able to have Chief Lieb in our state is great by itself, but now it gives these guys opportunities and gals to ask Chief Lieb anything they want. So we're kind of setting that up, figuring that out. He's also going to be having his book that he just released there. So we'll have book signings and everything. And he's hanging around that night also afterwards. So we might try to set some other meet and greets up with him at different places or see what he's up to. But he's really looking forward to it, looking to meet as many people as he can and just spread his knowledge.
Killer, man. That's awesome. I think it'd be sweet to have that round table and that opportunity to engage someone like that guys like that, probably yourself or people that are in your area, my area, that might have a question for an FDNY guy. Never really have that opportunity to do so. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, like there was a little bit of confusion at first. Like people have been hitting me up like, hey, is this conference open to people who don't live in Michigan? The answer is absolutely yes. It's open to anybody, including the 12th, with Frank Lee. That day is open to anybody who registers for the conference. So, it's certainly not like, oh, I can only pick or choose which day. Unless your schedule prohibits you from coming, you're more than welcome to attend, whatever you need to attend. So the 13th is going to be probably the biggest. We've got Andy Starnes coming in, Sean Egan. I'm gonna forget all these names. Anthony Avillo is doing it, and then I think we got one more lecture. I'm forgetting. I knew I was gonna do that.
Cody.
Help me out, Brandon.
Cody.
Yeah, Cody's our thank you. Cody is our keynote that day. So he's gonna be doing the make the grab, not excuses. And after all the lectures are done, we're going to meet back up in the ballroom at 7 p.m. And, so part of everybody registration, part of what they pay for is to come back to the ballroom at 7 p.m. and have a full dinner with hors d'oeuvres and drinks and everything else. Like we got that room till like 2 a.m. So
Yes.
we're gonna have our vendors there, speak with the vendors, come out, talk with them, see what they're about, support them because they're helping support the conference. It's just a social hour, get to know everybody, hang out. We're gonna have 2 different sessions, which would be a roundtable for people to ask questions to the presenters that are there. And it's gonna be a good time. So it was really important for when Brandon and I started talking about this year's conference and what we wanted to do was this is an experience, right? So I know like $400 could be steep for some people, but you're getting lunches, both hands-on days. You're getting the bash, or the whatever you want to call it, that on the night of the 13th. You're getting a lot of things that a lot of conferences do not offer you included in your conference price. So that was important for us. Just have a place where everybody can hang out after a long day of training and just shoot the shit, be themselves, hang out, and just enjoy the time that they got. So that's what you can expect. Right now, we're not sure if we're going to do any other social events throughout the conference. We'll look at that further as we get closer, but that's what we have planned right now. If not, come back to the hotel, the host hotel, which is the Marriott. It's got a restaurant in there. It's got a full bar. It's got a lounge. Like, we can all hang out there, and the conference already knows it's going to be packed with over 300 firefighters. So they're good with it.
Yeah, I will say the Uber and Lyft game in that area is legit. So if you're worried about that, don't worry. There's tons of Uber and Lyfts that'll take you where you need to go. Before we wrap, where can they find it? Where can they register for it? And when is it?
So the conference is June 12th through the 15th of 2024. You can follow us, our Facebook page, Great Lakes H.O.T. We post on there almost every day. We do have an Instagram page as well. Same thing, Great Lakes H.O.T. Any announcements that we make are going to be on those two pages. So the registration link, when you go to the Facebook page, it's right there under like where it says website. You click on that, or any of the track announcements, that'll have the link. We try to put that in there anytime we do an announcement for the conference, just so it's readily accessible for people. Yeah, it's fairly easy. You just click on it, it'll send you to the Reg Fox. You look at it, it's a pretty long page. It'll tell you about the conference, it'll show you who the speakers are, and then it'll give you like the hands-on sites where they're located, the host hotels, the discount codes for that stuff. All the information you need is on there. So just follow that, and if you have any questions, just reach out to us.
Killer. I think it's gonna be awesome, guys. I really do appreciate your time, and I was telling Sean I submitted my registration for it for my agency. So hopefully when my training chief comes back and he gives me the yay or nay on it, hope I can get the yay. I'll see you guys there.
Yeah, man, looking forward to it, and I appreciate you having us on, giving us a little opportunity to talk about the conference, and it means a lot to us. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah,
Sean,
appreciate
Brandon,
it having us on.
absolutely. Well, cool, guys. We'll go ahead and wrap up right now. I'll have you guys stick on for a second just after I stop recording, all right? Awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Awesome. And all right, we're good.
Boom.
Well, I appreciate the hell out of it, guys. You guys were awesome. That was